I would love for every single person out there who loves the Lord to experience within themselves what the Lord is doing already. So I desire to depart that key. Now, while you may think this is very difficult to do, it's not. It's wisdom from above. It's based on what God grants you. If the Lord gave you what he's given these folks that I come across today, my goodness, that would change everything, I do believe. So here we go with that. One of the key elements, again, within these people is that they had no complaints of the heart. And again, how do you recognize that? Well, the heart reveals what's in it. Everything you speak about, every communication that you have, most of what you do is going to be based upon what exists in the heart. For example, imagine a person who's always been rejected, and it's just in their heart. They're not a Christian, so they have no healing. That's going to make a person a few ways, but one of the most notable ways that person will become is very mean. That's how it's going to be perceived. In fact, though, it's not meanness. Suppose you had a person in your life that you just thought they were mean. This person, no doubt, and I'm going to show you how mean this works, how it can manifest out of the heart. This person's conversation, or one of these people, I'm going to describe someone very real you guys probably have in your families. These people will have a conversation, and they key in almost wrong, what's not right, with something or someone all the time. Right? But they themselves are perceived as mean. But what drives them to always talk about somebody else? To become mean, cold, callous, cut off things, turn their back and walk away. Right? To get angry at a moment's notice over a situation or perceived situation. And these people always will perceive the other person in thought. What I mean by that is these people that do this, they will say, well, I know so-and-so doesn't like me because of this or that. And before anybody can say a word, just about, they may get really angry and storm out. So let's find out what's happening in these people. Number one, when a person has been dealt a wrong deal in life, right? And they don't have Christ, they have no healing. They're walking around the earth broken, full of wounds and everything else. And these people will try to get you before you get them. When they get around people, they stop talking, right? And when these people stop talking, they feel that people don't want them there. So they have a rejection within them. And that rejection will cause a person to clam up and to walk out. And as soon as they walk out, they will hunt down someone who can hear them. And they're not going to give you the explanation as to why they walked out. They're going to give somebody else the explanation. It's always going to come. An explanation will always come, but they're always going to find somebody else to latch themselves onto, to speak about all of what went wrong. Where does that come from? Pain. Enduring lots and lots of pain. Being hurt over and over again. These people are in pain. And again, we're not talking about a believer. We're talking about non-believers. People who they may say they believe, But if the Lord showed up, they'd be the first ones to say, I can't believe it. Right? These people are full of pain. They've been mistreated. And what they have learned to do is to cut people off before they can get hurt, turn their back and walk away before they can hear anything that may hurt them. And they do have a complaint about everybody. Why? Because the heart is continuously crying out that I'm broken, that I'm being betrayed. And they almost become skittish or I'll say they feel like everybody's out to get them. Ever meet anybody like that, you guys? That's common. It's commonplace. And that comes from a heart that has not yet had its wounds mended. Walking around with a heart full of blame. That's the key word, full of blame. When you have blame in your life and you really believe something was somebody else's fault, you're speaking that and it's eating your heart up with everything. Now, ironically, these same individuals have favorites. They're always going to have a favorite they pay close attention to, right? Always. It didn't matter if they're male or female. These people cannot help but to give away their love, but they have not yet found out how to do it. When we have a heart like this, right, to actually get to where we have a thankful heart, not a complaining heart, and I truly do mean of the heart, not by way of our actions. In this case, actions are meaningless. They don't mean too much. When the heart is filled full of complaints, number one, the principle of the Lord is, out of the mouth flows the issues or the abundance of the heart. So whatever your heart is full of, that's going to become your conversation, right? Whatever it's full of, that will become your conversation. When we're full of complaints, it permeates in every aspect of our lives. Our discontentment with what we have can also lead you into talking about somebody else's life in a weird way. Once purged of the heart, thankfulness takes its place. And when this happens, there is no restrainer on you anymore. Not in that way. So let me ask you this. A complaint of the heart, because it's out of the heart, it permeates every word you say, every conversation you have, even the way you see things. When you're hurt in the heart and you're not healed, right? Or somebody robs you, or whatever the case is, that you could do 1,000 things in a day that can cause you to complain. You could have lost your money in some sort of a weird thing that happened with your bank. You could have wrecked your car, whatever the case is, right? It's going to cause you to complain. You may say these prices on this fuel is too high. You may be at the gas pump saying, look at these prices. This is ridiculous. Voicing this outright truly reveals what? What does it reveal? The key is in your own heart, when you purge your own heart of all complaints, when you really have no complaints, you'll never point a finger again. You will hold your mouth open, right? And this complaint stuff won't pour out from the heart. Instead, you'll be thankful for the smallest things. In fact, you'll be given a gift to see what's going on that you may be even more thankful. But with complaints, not so. If I were to complain about all the things in my life, it means there's no contentment in me. And that I'm going to just, eventually blame things on whoever provides the first vehicle close to me. That not vehicle does not mean car, but the first avenue or first object or way or whatever the case is that I engage life with. When we have complaints in our hearts, we end up sharing those complaints with everybody through multiple different ways, right? And again, out of the mouth flows the issues of the heart. So if your heart is not in a good place, neither will be your language, right? Your conversations, none of it will be. Once those complaints are gone, though, once you're no longer pointing the finger at everybody and your heart is full of thankfulness, your conversation is different. So how do you get from point A to point B? Having a heart that complains and then going to a content heart. How does that difference happen? How do you do that? It's very simple. Remember, we went over wisdom. It's very simple how this works. There's a task involved, a task that came out again and again and again, talking to these individuals. My goodness, I can't even, now I have something alongside the little drummer boy that really gets to me. And it's been bad this year for me, being so touched too many times. But let's talk about purging your heart. How would you guys suggest you do that? Before you answer, though, would you think just forgetting about things that's going to purge the heart? I'll tell you right now, no, it will not. It won't. Because your heart is imprinted with circumstances, things bad that happen to you, all this, that, and the other, right? How then would you do it? Anybody? How would you purge this complaint thing that we have going on? Let me go ahead and tell you. You ready? It's very easy. Remember, we read about wisdom from above, and wisdom from above, according to James, is pure, peaceful, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, full of good fruits, right? It is without partiality and without hypocrisy. It's very sincere. So wisdom from above is very easy to understand, very easy for you to use. You ready for it? Anybody? Ready for the remedy? Here it is. Instead of looking in your life, and I'm telling you this because these people established this, and a miracle is taking place through the pouring out of the real Spirit. We're not talking about something nobody can witness. No. We're not talking about that. I mean a true manifestation, a living example of that word, folks. How do you purge it from your hearts? You look in your life, look throughout your whole life, all the bad stuff especially, all the things that went wrong, all the unfortunate things. And once you see that, you're going to have your own truth. And with a heart that's full of complaints, the lights, the many lights in people, when they have a heart full of complaints, it's dimmed out. To pinpoint a heart of complaint is to pinpoint a person's past. In their life, something happened, and they saw it as something tragic. That happens in the mind first. Let me give you guys a process. So you contemplate something, it goes in the mind, your gears start working, you come up with your own definitions, causes, right? Your whatever the case is. Whatever you keep on the mind, you begin to believe, drops down into the heart. Now it's part of the heart. So whatever you, by way of the mind, began to believe in, it enters into the heart. Whatever you believe enters into the heart. Whatever you don't believe, that will never go into your heart, not ever. It's only what you believe. Do you all see how that works? So far, I'll say it again. In your mind, you receive things, sayings, and situations, circumstances, possibly visual information, as well as by voice. But if you believe it, that's when it enters into the heart. When it enters into the heart, you end up talking about it. It's like icing put on a cake of everything you do. It's going to be a part of every single conversation, right? Everyone. It's going to always pop out. To get rid of it means you no longer assign blame in your life to so many things that have happened and did not cause you to be fortunate like everybody else. But yes, it's time to see it for what it is. Now, these people did not go back in their past to see it as something unfair, but they saw God in it. Whatever happens in your life, if you see the Lord in it, you've seen the truth. Here it is. So what about the big one? What about if somebody sexually assaults another individual? That's brutal. How can God be an omnipotent God even permit that to happen? Because he's given his angels charge over us, right? How could he let that happen? See, this is where we suffer from severe mental loss. We do. Why do you think, I don't mean to offend anybody, but a lot of people believe in the Mandela effect. And then they get mad at me because I have an original copy of one of the arguments is Star Wars. But here it is. You guys do understand that when you're younger, you hear things differently than from the facts, period. You don't hear it the same way. And when you don't hear it the same way, you'll swear down it changed. By the way, the Mandela effect started because people began to believe that Nelson Mandela had been dead a long time before he had his funeral. Then all of a sudden they have his funeral. They see Nelson, he died. The Mandela guy died. And the whole country and in other countries knew about this guy. And so the Mandela effect reflects a person's loss of memory concerning the death of Nelson Mandela. That's where it begins. They simply messed up the timing because they did this. Well, people believe that somebody's altering things in the past. They believe that because it entered into their mind. They thought about it. Then they saw evidence and began to believe it until it trickled down into their hearts. That's how you can, you start believing in anything. It always begins in the mind. And when you see with complaints, when complaints enter in, it's the absence of God that causes these lifelong complaints. That's what a person believes. Because if they're hurt, one of the first questions they'll ask is, where was God in this? Don't they all? Somebody understand that part? Don't we all do that? Why did God let this happen to me? That's what we say. God wasn't around. I'm sorry, that's what we say. God wasn't there. Well, let's go ahead and retract that one. Jesus has been there since day one. So why do we say God is not there? Here we go, guys. We say that because we cannot see how any of that stuff is pertinent to our lives, living in a good way. In other words, we say to ourselves, with confusion, purging your hearts full of complaints, right? First of all, I want you to know something, that Does God know our condition? Of course he does. That's why we open the conversation by talking about the little ones. You're that same one, the little one. So, it means you have favor from the Most High. How many of you understand this? And listen to me. Before we talk about this next piece, there's something you have to know. If you believe in the Lord and have survived this long, it's not because of you. It's because you cannot say no. That's why. You can't say no. And that's not our doing. That's his doing. See, that would be a disqualification, period. So you know the Lord is looking to you never to fall so much that you are separated. And he intercedes for you in those areas of life you're not proficient in. Isn't that awesome? We didn't keep our own faith. No. He wouldn't lose us to the world. Now remember, the warning he wrote in Matthew is a warning to the world, not a warning to the saints. Woe unto the world, right? He began that conversation with. Why? Why? Because the world is structured to get rid of those who cannot help the world. That's how the world sees. If someone can't contribute, get rid of that person. If someone's what they call a useless eater, get rid of that person. And normally those are the people who have become a burden to society, someone who can't really do anything for themselves, or it becomes you, a person in a transition from being worldly to a saint, a real saint, not someone who carries the title for the sake of men, but someone who truly believes in Christ Jesus. And then when you look back upon your life, I'm telling you, looking back in your life, everything that transpired was full of mercy, full of grace. How many have a situation so bad that it's that situation you struggle with? Anybody? Who has a situation so bad you believe there's no reconciliation? To a degree. It's pretty heavy. How many? Anybody? How many have a situation where it often causes you to wish, you want to go back in time and just not be a part of it? How many would think that or do that? Or how many have that? That one circumstance you regret. How many have that? You'd like to get rid of it. Because if you did, you'd be making a mistake. If the Lord would allow you to undo your past, you would be making a grave mistake. I mean, a grave one. If you were to go back and change the slightest thing, you would be making a grave mistake. There were times I used to wish I could go back in time and change a few things. Now, I wouldn't change a thing. There were times that were so bad that I prayed, Lord, just please, I know it's impossible, but this situation is ruining me, right? It's just, I can't deal with the situation. I wish I could go back and undo what I did. That'd be a grave mistake. See, we're experts at one thing. We always know what we're going to do with what we have. And we're idiots at the same time because we never do. what we envisioned we would do. We do something else. All of us have an outlook in our lives because, how do I know this? Because we keep saying the same thing. We say, well, if I would have, then I would have. Right? If I were to go back in time, and if I would have not done this thing, things today would be beautiful, better. Or if I would have done this thing, life today would have changed. That would be the gravest mistake in our lives. I can understand why people want to go back into the past and change something. How we have been dealt a blow on occasion that's so heavy it forces your everything that you feel is logical. You'd like to do it to block that out, make it so it's never been. I'll tell you this: without that extraordinary situation, you would not have been altered the way you have been altered. God knew exactly what he was doing to get you in a position to keep his word, not to lose it. If he allowed us to have our will, we would have been lost to the world a long time ago, never to return. Never to return. Because we're the ones who say, Lord, if I just had this, then I would be that. If I could just change this, I already know I would do this. If I had a thing, I would do A, B, and C with this thing. We're the experts. Have you noticed that in every case, none of our plans worked out? None. We think we know the outcome, right? We don't. We think we know how things are going to happen. We don't. We don't. And everything, there were some declarations. How many of you said the dumbest? This is one of the dodo-ish prayers in history. You ready? Because I'm the biggest dodo who did it. I remember one time when I was young, I said, well, Lord, if I had X amount of dollars, I would do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's what I said. Well, guess what happened? It's almost like I was caught off guard because I didn't expect it. And that happened a long time ago, right? A long time ago that happened. And when I had it in my hands, I didn't do anything I said I would do. And then after it was gone, it hit me. I said, wait a minute. I had exactly what I told the Lord I needed to perform these things. And guess what I did? Nothing. In fact, I look back on my life, and everything I thought would happen in my life did not. Didn't do it. But everything I never counted on ended up being the greatest blessing in my life. The Lord knows where we need to be. He knows what he has to trim off to get us to fit into the robes of righteousness. Suppose the robe of righteousness, in my case, right, the waist part was 40 inches. The shoulders were so many inches, the tummy was so many inches, but I was too fat to fit into the robe of righteousness. Suppose that was what was purposed. And come to find out, I was too fat with worldly things and I could not fit into the robe of righteousness. But we never knew that. Somebody just told us about the robes of righteousness. You know what we said? Well, guess what? I can fit. All I have to do, isn't that what we do? Being the experts of our own lives. But we're not, because we don't know what tomorrow actually is. And because we don't know that, we don't know what mindset we're going to be in. We don't know. We think we know where we're going. We think we know that, but we don't. But God does. He knew, suppose in my case, that robe of righteousness fit a person no more than 200 pounds, and here I am walking around 360. But it fits a 200-pound person, and I really believe I'm going to wear that robe, but I'm too fat because it's for a person who's 200, and I'm 360. But I don't know that. All I know is the robe of righteousness. I do not know the specifications, and because of that, I cannot say I'm going to wear that robe. But in truth, guess what? In this scenario, guess what? When you are younger in the faith, you have no idea what the measurements of the robe is. You think you're getting in that robe, but the truth is, some fat has to be trimmed off before that happens. And what I'm telling you now is, only God knows where the fat is. So let's suppose in this argument, to get the fat off, the Lord said, okay, he's 6 years old. And look, when he gets 41, he's going to be fat, a fat guy, right? So I got to stop that before it happens, that he will always fit in that robe of righteousness. So what does he do? He allows me to get poisoned by food early in life so that I carry that thought around all my life. Hey, if I eat too much, I'm going to get poison. That stuff is poison. Poison, poison, poison. And you know what happens with that? I won't touch. I'm going to be indifferent to poison. I don't do the poison thing. So when I grow up and that time comes, only because I'm scared to death of poison, will I fit into that robe of righteousness, because the Lord knew how to trim the fat off before I ever had fat. Your life is no different. There are things that had to be cut out of your life to align you with this words of righteousness. We don't know what they are, but the Lord knew the day you were born. Even before you were born, he knew what was needed to get you from point A to point B. We didn't know. And so he began early in our lives, because you're already marked as family. He gave you something early and throughout your life to keep you in a certain position. For many of you who have excellent talents, he did not allow you to make it in the world on purpose, because you would be lost to the world. So he said no. And he sent a situation, or allowed a situation to form that would mess up your career as being a professional in music, in business. You name it, he stopped it so that you would never be lost to the world. Now, if a person, in this case, did not know any of that, they didn't know that a mandate was coming and you had to be a certain size. When people don't know the specifications, they automatically believe they're going to get the good part of what they're reading about. For a person who understands the specifications, they'll also understand how another person's life can be so horrible and what it was for. And in fact, it's not something you complain about, but it's in fact a blessing. See, when you understand that what you went through was a blessing, that's when your heart has no complaints in it anymore. A complaint of the heart can exist without you saying a word. That's a wall that blocks the spiritual things you could have from the spiritual things you do have. The Lord knew. These people that I saw today, the Lord knew. So what did he do? For some, they were handicapped, right? For others, severe brain damage. For others, ruin look-wise, right? Deformities. He kept them from the world because of that. For many of you, you may have something you've gone through that you absolutely believe it's your fault. You don't know the specifications of the formula of your life. You have no idea that if you had not gone through that certain thing, you would be totally different now. We don't know those things. Once you start to reconcile one or two episodes of life, the rest fall into place. And when they fall into place, your heart is no longer full of complaints. When your heart is full of thanks, something amazing happens by another biblical principle. When you're no longer full of complaints, you don't rebel against what God did in your past. You stop doing it. Isn't that something? Because the Lord told us whom he calls, he also qualifies. Your qualifications came from your days in sin. Even if you're saved, you're still a little one because you become a new creature in Christ. You don't know any better half the time. How many of you sinned on purpose against another person? When you sin against yourself, those are categorized as sins that don't necessarily lead to death. When you do something against another person, you can do things, in which case it was named in the Bible, they do lead to death. He didn't want you doing those permanent things that would lead you to nothing but death, but in fact broke the chains of that generational curse that would have sent you right to the pit. He broke it. And he bound you up in a place where you could not fully corrupt yourselves. There was only so far you could go. Remember where you came from, what you did not have. You know how those certain YouTube people, right? They will complain. They will knit. They have when they show their stuff, they have the most beautiful backdrops and everything else. Nice cameras to get the job done, electronics, all that. And then they get on the air and start griping about what's wrong. And people eat that up. They eat it up. It's almost like they're not worried about who's going to be condemned. They're only worried about their own little things. The Lord said no to you guys. He said no. So to change your heart from a heart of complaints to a heart of thanks, you have to see him in every aspect of your past. It's real easy to do. It really is easy to do. To see him in your past is to understand that he's saving your soul, not doing anything where you would lose your soul. That's what you have to think of. That the Lord is saving my soul. He's saving it. Now, these folks in transition, right? When they change their hearts, they're no longer standing against the windows of heaven. When you're blaming your life, pointing fingers at people in your lives, that's killing your brother. How many of you understand that when your heart is full of complaints, that provokes the Lord our God. And folks, this is what those people did not have. One older gentleman has not seen his grandkids nor his kids in 25 years. 25 years. No present, no anything for a long time. Then all of a sudden this year alone, he starts to understand why. And he says the first time that if he had somehow broken through or something like that, he would have been too much, and he would have been empowered, pay raises and everything else. And when you're empowered with things of the world, you're more apt to devote your time to the world, to be trained by the world. And when that takes place, you could be lost to your Father in heaven, who seeks to save your soul, not to lose it. Not to lose it. You guys get that? And again, you're one of the little ones, so long as you are in transition. A heart of thanks. What does that really do? It no longer puts you in a position to tempt the Lord your God. Takes you out of positions or oppositions that are full of hypocrisy. It removes the occupation of the spirit of fear. Totally removes it. Totally. To your favorite, huh? Anyway, when you totally remove that in-depth complaining and you're aligned back with thankfulness, you're in obedience with the Lord. And according to the Lord, when you are obedient, nothing is held back. But why is nothing held back at that point? Well, not before, because now you know what to do with what you have. You know how many times I received something too early and abused it? Didn't know what to do with it, actually. Only to tear it up, and then after that moment, 1, 2 years, saying, wow, wish I would have kept that thing. Now I know what it's for. But that's understanding by hindsight. That's all we have, lest the Lord give it to us. Spiritually, the Lord knows every move we're going to make, every job we're going to have, every single one. That's what we have to all remember. Because it said the Spirit is at work right now. There are physical manifestations of that Spirit on the earth right now. And if that be the case, get ready for a lot of earth's homeless to be given bungees so they can jump or do whatever they desire to do. It's very odd, ladies and gentlemen. Purging yourself, your heart, changes your language. You start speaking hopeful again. Ultimately, you start changing. Back to the little ones, because you are a little one in the middle of a transition. It'd be good for you to try your best to pay attention. Pay attention and pay attention. Always know the situation in the house. In your house, always know the situation by paying attention. By the way, did you know Satan will invade every area forgotten in your life? When you're thankful for all areas of your life, as was witnessed today, I mean, every single aspect is incredible. The Spirit of the Lord is so powerful over the folks now. And we're not talking about some UFO. It's actually starting out as a bridge. They'll span all throughout the U.S. The building of it. I have one more thing to talk about in this quest. It's the divulging of information that's key. The key is not having a heart of complaint. The return is, the result is an absolute change. Absolute. One more topic when I come back about how I believe now more than ever that time has altered itself, has changed big time. Something about prophecy, something I believe I witnessed today. I want to speak to you guys about it and get your take on it when I come back. Because you don't have to sit absent the Spirit. You don't have to sit even alone in your heart. What you can do in your obedience is sup with the Lord. Sup with the Lord. Because only in prophecy has anyone ever witnessed, and I'm speaking future tense, the working power of the Holy Ghost in the way that was seen today. It's like the promise that was promised to many is there. You're in the middle of it. You're a designated recipient of it. Now more than ever, I believe, because of what I witnessed, we are so far along in prophecy. So far along.